They say keep your friends close and your enemies closer. But what happens when your enemy is your friend? In this video, I'm pulling back the curtain on a deeply personal story of betrayal and resilience. You won't believe the lengths my friend went to try and sabotage me, and how that attempt ultimately fueled my greatest success. Marcus and I were the kind of friends people envied. The inseparable duo who'd met in college and stayed close through everything. Late night brainstorming sessions, inside jokes nobody else understood, dreams shared over cheap takeout in his cramped apartment. We started at the same marketing firm right after graduation. Same entry-level position, same cubicle row, same ambitious energy. We built each other up, or so I thought. Looking back now, I realize I was building him a ladder, one he'd later use to climb over me. The signs were always there. I just chose not to see them. When you trust someone completely, you ignore the small red flags. You explain away the uncomfortable moments. You give them the benefit of the doubt again and again. That was my mistake. Marcus wasn't building me up. He was studying my weaknesses, cataloging my insecurities, learning exactly where to strike when the time came. I just didn't know it yet. It started small, so small I almost missed it entirely. We'd be in meetings and Marcus would make jokes at my expense. "Man, you're so lucky things just fall into your lap," he'd say with that easy smile. I'd laugh along, pretending the words didn't sting. But beneath the humor, his comments carried a sharp edge, and it was aimed straight at my confidence. "Ryan always gets the easy clients," he'd mention casually to our team. "Some guys just have all the luck." Luck. That word became his favorite weapon. Every success I had was luck. Every project I completed was because the client was easy or the timing was right. Never because I worked hard or had good ideas. At first, I told myself he was joking. That's what friends do, right? They tease each other. It's bonding. But slowly I noticed something. The jokes only went one direction. I never made fun of his work. I never diminished his achievements. The friendship wasn't equal. It never had been. The turning point came at a company mixer 6 months into our jobs. We were standing with a group of senior managers, drinks in hand, everyone relaxed and chatting. Marcus raised his glass with that signature grin. "Here's to Ryan, the guy who somehow always lands on his feet, even if he trips a lot on the way down." Laughter erupted around us. People clapped me on the back, assuming it was good-natured teasing between friends. My boss chuckled. Our director smiled. I forced a smile too, but it didn't reach my eyes. The words echoed in my head long after the party ended. "Trips a lot on the way down." That was the first time I truly realized his support wasn't pure. His compliments always came with conditions, with subtle insults buried inside. He built me up in front of others just enough to tear me down in the same breath. But I still didn't want to believe it. We were friends. Best friends. He wouldn't deliberately hurt me, would he? A week later, a colleague named Brian pulled me aside in the break room. He looked uncomfortable, like he wasn't sure if he should say anything. "Hey, just a heads up," he said quietly. "Marcus has been telling people you're more luck than skill. That management gives you easy assignments because they feel bad for you." My stomach dropped. The coffee in my hand suddenly tasted bitter. "Are you sure?" I asked. Brian nodded. "I've heard him say it twice now. Different conversations, same message. I thought you should know." I thanked him and walked back to my desk in a daze. Part of me wanted to confront Marcus immediately. Part of me wanted to believe it was a misunderstanding. But deep down, I knew better. It wasn't the first time he downplayed my abilities. It was just the first time someone else had noticed and cared enough to tell me. The friend I trusted was working against me, and he'd been doing it for months. The real betrayal came on a Monday morning 3 weeks later. I walked into an important client call, completely unprepared and 15 minutes late. The client was annoyed. My manager looked disappointed. I stammered through an apology, trying to salvage the situation, but the damage was done. Afterward, Marcus found me in the hallway. His face was full of concern. "Dude, I'm so sorry. I completely forgot to forward you the updated meeting time. They changed it Friday afternoon, and it slipped my mind." He looked genuinely apologetic. His voice had that perfect tone of regret. But I checked my email obsessively all weekend. I'd asked him directly on Friday if anything had changed. He'd said no. This wasn't forgetfulness. This was sabotage. "It's fine," I said flatly. "I'll handle it." His smile flickered for just a second, surprised that I wasn't more upset, maybe, or disappointment that I wasn't falling apart. I walked away before I said something I'd regret. After that, I started watching him more carefully. The way he smiled too easily, laughed too loud at jokes that weren't funny. The way his eyes would harden when someone praised my work. Every success I'd seemed to irritate him. "You really think you can handle that project?" he'd ask whenever I took on something challenging. The words were phrased as concern, but the tone was doubt. "The Westman account is pretty complicated. Maybe you should ask for help. That deadline seems tight for you. Want me to mention it to the boss? Are you sure you're ready for client presentations? No shame in waiting a bit longer." Each question chipped away at my confidence. And that was the point. He wasn't doubting me because he was honest. He was doubting me because he was threatened. I started realizing that my friendship with Marcus had become a competition I didn't know I was in, and he was determined to win. Soon I noticed whispers following me through the office. That I was difficult to work with. That I was overconfident. That my successes were flukes or handouts from sympathetic managers. The same phrases I'd heard from Marcus in his friendly advice were now echoing from other people's mouths. He'd been spreading poison with a smile, disguising gossip as concern. "I'm worried about Ryan," he'd tell coworkers. "He's taking on too much. I hope he doesn't crash and burn. Ryan got lucky with that account. I just hope he doesn't get overconfident. Between you and me, I think management is going easy on him. He's not as strong as he thinks." Every sentence sounded supportive on the surface. But underneath, he was planting seeds of doubt, making people question my abilities before they even worked with me. It was brilliant, really, and devastatingly effective. People started treating me differently. Less respect, more skepticism. The benefit of the doubt disappeared. I wanted to confront him, to demand the truth, to call him out publicly, to make him admit what he was doing. The urge was overwhelming some days. But something inside me said no. If I confronted Marcus, he'd twist it. He'd gaslight me, claim I was paranoid or jealous. He'd play the victim so convincingly that I'd end up looking like the villain. Instead, I decided to play the long game. Silence became my strategy. Observation became my weapon. I stopped sharing my ideas with him. Stopped asking for his feedback. Stopped treating him like the friend I thought he was. He noticed the distance immediately. "Everything okay, man? You've been quiet lately." "Just busy," I'd say. "Lots of projects." He'd nod, but his eyes were calculating, trying to figure out what had changed, whether I suspected anything. I gave him nothing, and that uncertainty ate at him more than any confrontation could have. Then came the day that changed everything. Kira, a quiet analyst from the research department, pulled me aside one afternoon. We barely knew each other, maybe 5 conversations total in 2 years. "Ryan, I think you should know something," she said, glancing around to make sure we were alone. "Marcus has been trying to block your promotion." The words hit me like ice water. "What?" "He's been talking to people in management, saying you're not ready, that you need more time, that promoting you would be a mistake. He's been doing it for weeks." Hearing it confirmed out loud was a gut punch. The man I'd once called my best friend, the person I trusted more than anyone, was actively campaigning against me behind my back. That was the day I stopped being naive. That was the day I decided Marcus wouldn't win. "Thank you for telling me," I said quietly. Kira nodded. "He's doing the same thing to at least 2 other people." Somebody needed to say something. I didn't explode. I didn't confront Marcus publicly or send angry emails or cause a scene. That's what he would expect. That's what would make me look unstable, emotional, unprofessional. Instead, I started documenting everything. Every email where he forgot to include me. Every meeting where he took credit for my ideas. Every message dripping with manipulation, disguised as friendship. I created a folder on my personal drive, backed up conversations, saved timestamps, and then I doubled down on my work. Excellence became my armor. Results became my defense. I stopped worrying about what Marcus said about me and started focusing on what I could prove. Every project I completed ahead of schedule. Every client who sent positive feedback. Every goal I exceeded. Let him spread rumors. I'd build a reputation too strong for gossip to touch. It wasn't easy. Some days I wanted to quit, to walk away from the whole toxic situation. But I worked too hard to let him push me out. One by one, my results started speaking louder than his rumors. Management noticed. They started giving me more visible projects, asking for my input in strategy meetings, including me in high-level discussions. 3 months after Kira's warning, my manager called me into her office. "Ryan, you've been doing incredible work lately. The Hartman campaign especially, that was outstanding. The client specifically requested you for their next project. Thank you, I said, trying to stay calm. I appreciate the opportunity. She smiled. We're considering you for senior account manager. The promotion should be finalized next quarter. I walked back to my desk feeling lighter than I had in months. Marcus was sitting across the aisle. His jaw was tight, his expression carefully neutral. For the first time since this began, he looked small, diminished, like he finally realized his tactics weren't working anymore. I didn't gloat. I just got back to work. That was its own kind of victory. That night, I stood in my bathroom, staring at my reflection. The face looking back at me seemed older, more tired, but also stronger somehow. I realized I'd been chasing Marcus's approval for years. In college, I'd want him to think I was smart. At work, I'd want him to be proud of my successes. I'd measure my worth by his reactions. You don't need to prove him wrong, I told my reflection. You just need to prove yourself right. That shift in mindset changed everything. I stopped caring what Marcus thought. Stopped checking his reactions when I succeeded. Stopped feeling diminished by his put-downs. His opinion became irrelevant. And without my attention feeding his ego, he lost his power over me. It's strange how much lighter you feel when you stop carrying someone else's judgment. When you realize their betrayal says everything about them and nothing about you. I was free. Finally, genuinely free. Marcus tried one last desperate move. He accidentally sent a doctored spreadsheet to the entire team, making it look like I'd missed multiple deadlines on a major project. The email went out on a Friday afternoon. By Friday evening, 3 people had forwarded me concerned messages. Is everything okay? This doesn't seem like you. Monday morning, I walked into HR with my laptop. I showed them the original files, every one time-stamped and backed up in our system. I showed them the email chain where Marcus had specifically asked for those files 3 days before his accidental email. The evidence was damning. There was no way to explain it away as a mistake. The HR director's expression hardened as she reviewed everything. We'll handle this. Thank you for bringing it to our attention. That afternoon, Marcus was called into a closed-door meeting. He emerged 2 hours later looking pale. His signature smirk had finally cracked. I didn't feel triumphant. I just felt tired. Within 2 weeks, Marcus was quietly reassigned to a different department. A less visible position with no direct reports and no client interaction. The company didn't announce why, but everyone knew. I got the promotion he'd been gunning for. Senior account manager with my own team, my own projects, my own budget. Not because I'd out-schemed him. Not because I played political games. But because truth, consistency, and quiet strength always outlast deceit. The promotion felt surreal. Part of me had convinced myself it would never happen, that Marcus's campaign would work, that gossip would destroy my career. But I'd underestimated something crucial. Good work speaks for itself. Results can't be spun or manipulated or explained away. I'd let my performance do the talking, and it had been louder than any rumor. On my first day in the new role, I cleaned out my old desk. Marcus's empty cubicle sat across from mine, a reminder of what happens when you build your career on tearing others down. At the next company event, my manager announced my promotion in front of the entire department. The applause felt overwhelming, genuine, warm, congratulatory. I scanned the crowd and found Marcus near the back. He was clapping too. The movements were mechanical, hollow. His smile didn't reach his eyes. For the first time, his applause wasn't approval or friendship. It was surrender. Several coworkers came up afterward to congratulate me. Some mentioned they'd always known I was capable. Others admitted they'd heard rumors, but chose to judge me by my work instead. A few pulled me aside privately. We knew Marcus was spreading stories. One senior manager said quietly, "We just needed you to prove him wrong with results. You did. That's why you got promoted." So management had known all along. They'd watched, tested me, given me chances to fail or succeed on my own merit. And I'd succeeded. Despite everything working against me, I'd succeeded. Later that night, my phone buzzed. A text from Marcus. "Congrats, man. No hard feelings." I stared at those words for a full minute. No hard feelings. As if months of sabotage and betrayal were just a misunderstanding between friends. As if I should forgive and forget because he'd gotten caught. I could have ignored it. Could have blocked his number and moved on completely. Instead, I typed back, "Appreciate it. Hope you're doing well." No sarcasm. No spite. No hidden meaning. Just simple, honest words. Because holding on to anger would have given him power over me. Forgiveness, or at least indifference, was freedom. I didn't need revenge. I didn't need an apology. I didn't need him to understand what he'd done. I just needed to move forward. And I couldn't do that while looking backward. That text was the last direct communication we ever had. And I was okay with that. Weeks passed. Marcus stopped reaching out completely. No bro texts. No casual drop-ins at my desk. No attempts to revive the friendship. Word spread through the office that he'd requested a transfer to the company's satellite office in another city. 2 months later, he was gone. And just like that, the noise disappeared from my life. The office felt different without him. Lighter. More collaborative. I realized how much energy I'd been spending just managing his presence. Watching my words, guarding my ideas, anticipating his next move. Now I could just work. Just create. Just be myself without constantly looking over my shoulder. My team started thriving. Projects moved faster. Ideas flowed more freely. People stopped competing against each other and started working together. It was remarkable how much one toxic person could poison an entire environment, and how quickly that environment healed once they were gone. Without Marcus's negativity shadowing everything, I found my rhythm. I started new initiatives, pitched creative campaigns, collaborated with colleagues I'd been too guarded to trust before. My creativity flourished. Ideas came easier. Work felt exciting again instead of exhausting. I took on projects Marcus had convinced me I wasn't ready for. Turns out, I was more than ready. I excelled at them. His betrayal, painful as it was, had actually freed me. I've been holding myself back, limiting my potential, playing small to avoid threatening him. Now I could finally grow, finally take risks, finally show what I was truly capable of. One afternoon, my manager pulled me aside. Whatever you're doing differently, keep doing it. You're thriving. I stopped letting other people's opinions define me. I said simply. She smiled. Best decision you could have made. She was right. Marcus's betrayal had been devastating, but surviving it had made me stronger than I'd ever been. I started building new friendships at work. Real ones, based on mutual respect instead of hidden competition. People like Kira, who'd risked social capital to warn me. Brian, who'd noticed Marcus's gossip and spoke up. Others who valued honesty and collaboration over office politics. These friendships felt foreign at first. I'd been conditioned to expect ulterior motives, to wait for the other shoe to drop. Trust came slowly, but gradually, I learned to recognize the difference. Real friends celebrated my successes without qualification. They challenged me without diminishing me. They were honest without being cruel. There was no hidden agenda, no subtle competition, just genuine support. It felt strange at first, being surrounded by people who actually wanted me to succeed. But it also felt right, like I'd finally found my people. Marcus had taught me a valuable lesson, even if he hadn't meant to. Not everyone who smiles at you is your friend, and not everyone who challenges you is your enemy. 6 months after the promotion, my name appeared in a trade magazine article titled, Rising Innovators in Marketing. They interviewed me about the Hartman campaign and my approach to client relationships. The article was picked up by several industry blogs. My LinkedIn exploded with connection requests. Conference organizers reached out asking me to speak. I didn't tell Marcus. I didn't need to. The universe has a way of broadcasting what silence keeps sacred. But I did think about him when I saw the article. Wondered if he'd seen it too. Wondered if he regretted his choices. Then I decided it didn't matter. His regret or lack of it wasn't my concern anymore. I'd moved on. Truly, completely moved on. The article led to new opportunities, speaking engagements, consulting offers, networking invitations. Doors opened that I hadn't even known existed. All because I'd focused on excellence instead of revenge, on building instead of destroying, on proving myself instead of disproving him. 9 months after Marcus left, I ran into him at an industry conference. I was there as a speaker. He was attending as a general participant. He looked worn. The confident shine that used to define him had been replaced with something duller, more desperate. The designer clothes and easy smile remained, but they seemed hollow now. He spotted me across the lobby and hesitated. Then he forced himself to walk over. Ryan. He tried to smile. You really made it. Things have gone well, I said neutrally. Yeah, I saw the article. Impressive. The word sounded painful for him to say. I smiled back, genuine but distant. I guess I just stopped letting the wrong people slow me down. The comment landed. Recognition flashed in his eyes. Understanding that I knew, had always known exactly what he'd done. Well, congrats, he said awkwardly. Really? Thanks. Good luck with everything, Marcus. I walked away before the conversation could continue. There was nothing left to say. He didn't apologize. He didn't need to. The regret in his eyes said more than words ever could. The defeat in his posture told the whole story. Marcus had bet everything on his ability to manipulate, to charm, to tear others down. And when that strategy failed, he had nothing left. No real skills. No genuine relationships. No foundation to rebuild on. I'd bet on hard work, integrity, and consistency. And those things had carried me further than his shortcuts ever could have taken him. As I drove home from the conference that night, I thought about everything. The lies, the manipulation, the late nights wondering what I'd done wrong. The months of self-doubt and second-guessing. And then I realized something profound. I hadn't done anything wrong. I'd just outgrown the version of myself that needed his validation. The Ryan who'd started at that marketing firm was desperate for approval, willing to overlook red flags to maintain friendship. The Ryan driving home now knew his worth didn't depend on anyone else's opinion. I started mentoring younger professionals after that. People struggling with toxic work relationships, dealing with colleagues who undermined them, navigating office politics they didn't understand. Revenge doesn't have to be loud, I told them. Sometimes your success is the only answer they deserve. I share my story, the betrayal, the documentation, the quiet persistence. How I'd won not by fighting Marcus directly, but by refusing to let him define me. The best revenge is building a life so good you forget why you wanted revenge in the first place. I explained. Focus on your work. Let results speak. Trust that truth eventually wins. Some people struggle with that advice. They wanted immediate justice, public vindication, dramatic confrontation. I understood. I wanted those things too. But I'd learned that quiet victories last longer than loud ones. That dignity in the face of betrayal is its own kind of power. The mentoring became one of the most rewarding parts of my career. Helping others navigate what I'd survived gave purpose to my pain. A year after that conference encounter, I heard through mutual acquaintances that Marcus had left the industry entirely, moved to a different city, started over in a different field. Part of me felt relieved. Part of me felt sad for the friendship we'd lost, or maybe for the friendship that had never really existed in the first place. But mostly I felt grateful. Grateful that I'd survived. Grateful that I'd grown. Grateful that his betrayal had pushed me to become stronger instead of bitter. I'd build a career I was proud of. Develop relationships based on authenticity. Learn to trust my instincts and value myself. Marcus's sabotage hadn't destroyed me. It had refined me, burned away the parts of myself that sought external validation, and left behind something stronger, more resilient, more certain. I wouldn't thank him for it, but I wouldn't curse him either. He was simply a chapter in my story, a difficult one, but ultimately one that made the following chapters better. Now, standing in my corner office 2 years later, I thought about where this journey started. Two friends with matching ambitions, sitting in a cramped apartment, sharing dreams over takeout. I thought we were building something together. Marcus had seen it differently, as a competition with only one winner. The irony was that we could have both succeeded. There was room for both of us to thrive. But his need to tear me down had destroyed him more than it ever hurt me. People ask me sometimes if I ever talked to Marcus, if we reconciled, if I forgave him, if our friendship survived. The answer is no, and that's okay. Some relationships end. Some betrayals can't be undone, only survived. But I learned something valuable. They say keep your friends close and your enemies closer, but sometimes your enemy is the friend who smiles the widest. Marcus's betrayal didn't destroy me. It defined me. It taught me strength, resilience, and the power of quiet persistence. And I succeeded, without saying a word. That silence spoke louder than any confrontation ever could have. It said, I don't need to defend myself against lies. I don't need to fight publicly. I don't need revenge. I just need to keep building, keep growing, keep becoming the person I was always meant to be. And that was the greatest victory of all. If this story resonated with you, please give this video a thumbs up and share it with someone who needs to hear it. Drop a comment below about a time you had to fight for what was yours. And don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more powerful true stories every week. Hit that notification bell so you never miss a story about standing up, fighting back, and protecting what matters most.